So, yes. So welcome everyone. I am Carrie Guthrie Cho, the President and CEO of Cornerstone Montgomery, and I'm very happy to be here with you today. Thank you, Jessica, for that great introduction. CCI is definitely one of our best partners in this county. So today we are here to talk about how to recognize, manage, and address burnout. Let's be honest, burnout is something that we've always talked about. That's always come up, but it has become much more prominent, I think, over the last 2 years with COVID, with staffing shortages, increased anxiety, fear of getting sick and or losing someone important have definitely made things increasingly more challenging. And so I think it's a great idea that this is something that you guys wanted to talk about. So this first slide is, are you on the road to burnout? Is every day a bad day? Is caring about your work or your home life, does that seem like a total waste of energy? You're exhausted all the time. The majority of your day is spent on tasks that you find mind-numbing, dull, or overwhelming, or you feel like there's nothing you can do that makes a difference or is appreciated. So if you answered yes to most of these questions, then you're probably on the road or struggling with some burnout issues. If you answered yes to maybe one or two, then I think here's some insight. There's things that you can do. There's things that you should do to try and keep yourself from getting all the way to that burnout phase. Because I'm sure you guys have experienced burnout. You're experiencing it now. You've known other people who have, and it definitely impacts you every day. Your work, what you feel like doing, home life, it really can impact everything. So I think, it's something that we all can relate to. So what's the difference between stress and burnout? Stress is usually when there's too much going on. There's over-engagement, you're overreactive, there's a sense of urgency about everything. You have too much anxiety, you have all these physical issues, and there definitely is some overlap, and we'll see that in the next slide. But burnout is generally when you're not getting enough. You're disengaged, so you're having less contact with other people, less support. You have your blunted emotions. You're not as overreactive, you're just blunted. You feel helpless and hopeless. You don't really care. You've lost kind of that feeling that you care about what's going on. A loss of motivation, maybe even some depression and emotional issues. So it's kind of the difference between stress and burnout. There's definitely some overlap, but I liked how this was framed, that stress is kind of too much of stuff, and burnout is you're not getting enough of what you need to move forward and do well in your life, really. So causes of burnout. We're talking work, life, and just maybe some of your personality traits that can add to this. Work stuff, you're working so hard and no one seems to notice it. You just don't feel appreciated. You don't feel like you're getting any recognition. Things have gotten more confusing, whether it's because of COVID or something else. There's not enough staff. Maybe you have too many clients, too much work to do. And you just aren't sure what to do anymore or how to prioritize things because there's just too many things going on, too many things that you need to do because of all the stuff that's missing. You're feeling bored even, or completely overwhelmed. So either you find things dull or monotonous, or you find things incredibly chaotic or high pressure. So I can tell you that the first summer of COVID, the 2020, that summer, when we were pretty much all virtual, there was hardly anyone here at the office. I hated working from home. I hated it. I still don't love it, but I did not like it. I found it very boring. I found that I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing, like what was going on. The part of it was just COVID. Every day you got new information. And I really was not feeling good about work that first summer. I felt like things were just out of control. So that's work stuff. And I'm sure you guys, have other examples that you would even talk about. Life, you're isolated, your friends, especially with COVID, you can't see each other. I mean, maybe you can now, but at first you couldn't really see each other. So you felt like you were losing support. You didn't have the new normal support system. You have too many responsibilities at home. Some of you are probably parents. You have kids that you have to take care of. Maybe you have parents that you need to take care of, or a spouse. You're worried about childcare. You're worried about people getting sick. Maybe you did have family members get sick and you had to take time off. Maybe you got sick. There's just so many responsibilities, and they really only added up the last 2 years. And of course, not getting enough sleep. That's a doozy for so many things that we talk about in the world these days. Just again, these are just some examples of things that might cause burnout or that you would be experiencing. And then personality traits can add to it. If you're a type A personality, then burnout, it's easier to get there. I mean, you are a perfectionist, you aren't good at delegating, and you like to have some sort of level of control. If you're that kind of personality, then all these other things that I've talked about at work and home are going to be a struggle, are going to be even more of a challenge for you. Being perfectionistic. What are other things that people see as being causes of burnout? Is there anything that wasn't here that people would throw out examples? And just unmute yourself and shout out. There's not, we're a small enough group. Anything else that we haven't mentioned? Maybe it's all on here. Okay. So burnout, what does it look like? What are you going to see in yourself or your colleagues or your family members? Well, we've talked about some of these things already, but some specific examples. Fatigue, you're tired, you're irritable, you're moody, depressed. You start missing deadlines at work. If you even go to the office, you can start missing work just in general, not showing up, skipping work or coming in late. Physical issues, headaches, stomach aches, other GI issues, panic attacks, changes in sleep or appetite. All of those things can be symptomatic of burnout. Anxiety, substance use, starting to use drugs or alcohol more, less team cohesion. The team is just struggling at work. You're not supporting each other like you normally do. You don't even have a team because everybody left. You're trying to hire new people. It's you and one other person. When it used to be 5 or 6 of you, it could definitely add to burnout, and that would definitely make things harder to deal with at work or at home. And then just stress at home. Some of those things that we mentioned in that other slide, where if people are sick, you have to worry about childcare, you're worried about losing your job, worried about keeping your job, worrying about getting a new job. All of those things can add to that stress level at home and things that are happening at home. Again, is there anything else that people would say we should add to this slide? Anything else that people might be experiencing?
Carrie, just to note, somebody in the chat mentioned that these all sound like the outcome of trauma as well.
Absolutely. Think about it. Things that cause anxiety, what they say, the top 3 events in your life that can cause anxiety are a death, divorce, and a large change. Usually it's a move or a new job, things like that. And those don't even have to necessarily be negative. They could all be, on one hand, good things that are happening, but they cause stress and anxiety. And a lot of it, again, absolutely can feel like trauma, especially with COVID. If you've had people who have died from COVID, if you almost died, your family members did, children were sick. I have 2 kids of my own. I can't even imagine. You're worried about the vaccine. Maybe you can't get the vaccine because of physical issues. Maybe you just don't want to get the vaccine. You're not sure about it. You're scared about it. All of that can just add to the stress of what's been going on the last 2 years, and absolutely can feel like a trauma. Absolutely. Are there anything else in the chat? I guess I can look at the chat too. Restlessness. Yep. I agree. Restlessness. The virtual landscape we have lived in has created so much burnout. In-person life has been a breath of fresh air and calm. It's very funny. I would agree with that, absolutely. But there are some people who prefer the virtual world. So it's interesting how that plays out for different people. Although I will say all the research shows that we need to come back to the office, at least on some level. Yes, it has to be a hybrid now when it's possible. In some places it's not possible. If you're a service provider like Cornerstone Montgomery, some of our services have to be in person. They're residential, staff have to be there. But a lot of the services can be a hybrid, but that really all the research shows is that really you need to have some of that back in the office time together, where you can have more team building, collaboration, the brainstorming works much better in person than remotely. What else is on there? Yeah, okay. So what can you do about it? I think we have all experienced it or feel at least some symptoms of it now, or sometime in the last 2 years, maybe, or even other times in our lives. And what can you do about it? If for you as an individual, self-care, and I know we're probably sick of hearing that word. We talk about it a lot, I know, here at Cornerstone Montgomery, but it really is a big deal. Use those vacation days. I like to tell all of our new staff that when I do new orientation. Use your vacation days. We give you quite a few. You should use them. Use mental health days. You can use sick days for that in most places now. And if you can't, you probably can use a vacation day for it. Take that mental health day. Take that break. And then, of course, all the obvious things, exercising, other wellness activities, yoga, whatever, works for you, reading, watching TV. We probably all, Netflixed and watched every TV show we can watch over the last 2 years. But if that's an escape for you, then that works. Watch your overtime. Sometimes when you're working remotely, it's easy to forget how long you've been working. I don't know about you, but sometimes all of a sudden I look at the clock and it's like 7 at night and I'm like, what the heck happened here? If my kids aren't at home and don't tell me it's time for dinner. So you just watch that overtime and take breaks, not just lunch breaks, but get up. If you're sitting at a desk, I generally sit at a desk most of the day. I'm on the computer a lot. I try and get up at least once an hour and walk around the hallways, take a bathroom break, something. Go say hi to people, because it just, you need that break it up. Otherwise you just kind of get stuck. So doing all those things, even though you've heard it before and it feels obvious, are you actually doing it? You really need to make sure that you are. You need to communicate your needs. You need to tell your supervisor or your family member or whoever what you need. What do you need? Do you need that day off? Do you need an extra remote day to get some other stuff done? Do you want to come into the office? Whatever your needs are, communicate them. Make sure your supervisor knows what you need, or your team knows, depending on how you guys work that out. Look at your schedule. Remote versus in the office. Is there flexibility? Can you do a hybrid? Some places you can't, but if you can, what is that going to look like going forward? Figuring that out and communicating your needs about that can go a long way to reducing the stress of even just returning to the office. I know that's definitely a trigger for a lot of people. Ask questions. Find out what the resources are at your organization. And I'll talk about that on the next slide, but ask, what resources are there? Where can I get help? Who should I talk to? If you don't feel like you can talk to your supervisor, then try and talk to your HR department, or try and talk to another colleague that you trust. Definitely reach out and get support. And then use the resources and your team. You shouldn't, if at work, you're in a team, you shouldn't have to be alone. Oh, is that we're having a pet or a dog that needs your attention and force you to take breaks? Absolutely. If you're working from home, or even bringing your pet to the office, a lot of places allow that. That can absolutely help break up your day. That's a great idea, Jane. Yeah, to use your pet. When I'm working from home, absolutely, I have to take breaks to walk the dog. But even bringing pets to the office, that's just a release for a lot of people. So that can absolutely be something that helps. And then what if you're a supervisor or you are an agency representative or you just being in an agency? If you're a supervisor, I mean, you really need to set the tone for your team. You know, you need to demonstrate the self-care so that everyone knows it's a priority and that you need to do that. I tell people when I do new staff orientation, when I go on vacation, I turn my email off my phone because I'm the person, if I see those numbers going up at the bottom, I'm going to have to look at my emails. And I refuse to do that. So I'm like, I tell people, if the CEO can turn off her email when she goes on vacation, everyone can turn off their email when they go on vacation. Your team knows your phone number. If they really need you for some sort of emergency, they can text you, they can call you. You don't need to be looking at those emails while you're supposed to be on vacation or even a mental health day. Take that break. You definitely need to do that. As a supervisor, as an agency, you need to communicate. You need to make sure you're sharing information, deadlines, expectations, be clear. And I'll be honest, I'll say as a CEO, this is hard. You mess up sometimes. So then you need to own that you messed up and get right back into it. I think HR counted, I've sent over 200 emails in the 2 years about COVID alone. You just got to communicate, and over communicating is better than under communicating. Even if you say the same thing 10 times, guarantee you that you've got staff who are only going to see it once, because people don't look at every email. There's too many. Even if it comes from the CEO, trust me, it doesn't matter. So over communicate. Encourage self-care. As I said, set the tone, but then encourage it. Those vacations, those breaks. Do some team building. You know, I know we've got teams that a lot of our teams are meeting in person again, or at least they were before Omicron. So in some of them were bringing food in and doing some fun activities, trying to, you know, rebuild some team building. Absolutely. You know, do a, you know, potluck, go out to eat, do something, you know, that kind of brings you back together again and is a little restorative. You know, for long-term burnout issues, I think offering growth opportunities and training, whether that's skills training, mentoring, talking about career paths, just things to get you out of that, you know, if you're feeling really like things are monotonous, what else could interest you? What else might you want to do? Talk to somebody, talk to HR about that, you know, find out what else is going on. Are there other positions in the organization? Maybe you do need a whole job change. And you can stay where you are, but you can try something different. So there's definitely those things that I think as an agency or as a supervisor, you want to explore and support people if they really need a change. And then of course, sharing resources. Most agencies, not all, have an, you know, employee assistance program, policies and procedures, things like that, that you can share and are resources that people, you know, need to know. You know, a lot of times employees say that stress is increased by a lack of opportunities for growth. So I think that's another reason why growth in general with burnout, not specific to COVID or anything, can be helpful. You know, and definitely give people options. Let's see. Oh, and then I think one key for organizations is make sure that your supervisors are aware of the resources that are there and that they have resources they need to support their staff. You know, supervisors throughout the agency that you work at or wherever are key to knowing what's going on with frontline folks. And, you know, they need to know what the resources are and have an understanding of what they can do to help people and support people. And as I said, even if you're not a supervisor, asking those questions, you know, making sure that, you know, you tell people what you need, find out what the options are, really just helps, you know, get through whatever's going on, whether it's a pandemic or some other crisis situation. The last slide is really just some resources. Really, I was not going to give you a list of like articles when you can go to Google and Google burnout and see all the articles yourself. But there are some that are helpful. So I just put that as a reminder. Reach out to your supervisor or HR to find out what the resources are where you work. There's the Montgomery County hotline in case that's something that you need as well. And then here's my email. Please feel free to reach out if you have any specific questions. I definitely have no problem with that. Also very happy to share the slides I know they have that at the chamber, and they can share the slides along with the link to the, the recording once we're done. So anyway, so I think that's the end. I know we definitely have plenty of time for questions, which I think is great. So I'll stop sharing and we can have some questions if there are any.